thanks for joining me. So I have decided, just while we're waiting for a few more people to join in, I've decided to run these from my website because it's becoming difficult for people that are just joining now. I can see there's some new names. It's becoming difficult for them to find the lessons on Facebook because you have to scroll through my page. So this is so much easier because you have today's lesson live right now under the title on this page, today's lesson. And then you've got all of the previous lessons in a tabbed section below this video. So then everybody, you can take these lessons in any order you want. You can join in today, and then if you haven't done the previous shading of the lemon that we did and the eye, lips, nose, you can take all of those in any order after this lesson. So if you're just joining now, they are all there still for you underneath this video. But today we're going to all join in this one together. We're getting a good group together now. Good. Hello everyone, nice to see you. We are going to be drawing a ear today. An ear, I should say. You need a piece of paper, you need an eraser, and you need a pencil. We're going to get going. Super. Okay, having a look at the photograph that we're drawing from, what I'm going to do is draw the outline. If you took my previous lesson where we drew the lips, that was all about less line and more shading. The ear has, you'll see, a lot of line, a lot of defining lines, so it's really important that we do keep that line in this case. We'll still obviously be doing a lot of shading. So we're going to draw the main outline, and then we're going to draw the lines that are on the inside of the ear. We are then going to shade the entire piece, and then we're going to draw on the highlights with an eraser. If you don't have an eraser, you are going to miss out of the stage where you shade the whole thing in and then take the highlights off. You will draw the outline with us, and then you will wait till we've done the shading and the highlights, and then we'll all join back in together doing the darker shades. So let's do this outer line first. Keep it nice and big on your page. I'm looking back and forth all the time, and I'm keeping my initial outline quite sketchy and very light on my page. So that's my outer line. Now going to draw this inner line. Again, keeping it nice and light. Note there's a bit of a point here, so don't necessarily follow the outer line. Don't assume it's the exact same shaped line on the inside and the outside. It's all about looking. Then I'm going to move on to these lines here. Looking carefully at where lines meet and cross, and the angle. You'll see I used my pencil a little bit there just to get the angle right, because I started over here. Naturally it needs to be a little bit more in. That's another reason why we draw lightly. I'm now moving on to this line here. a few more lines around here. Going to correct my line there. Okay, so that's my simple outline done. I'm quite happy with my outer line, so I'm just going to strengthen that up a little bit. Okay, so like I said, if you don't have an eraser, you're not going to do this next bit. Now I've got a range of pencils. I was using a 4H to sketch out with. I'm now going to select an F for shading in. If you've only got a HB pencil, then that's completely fine. You can shade in with this. If you don't have an eraser, you are not going to do this next stage because you will not be able to remove the highlights. So I'm going to shade all over. So those who do have an eraser, join in with me now, shading this in. And just give it a light smudge. Do hang on in there. If you don't have an eraser, you'll be able to join in the next stage, so don't worry about that. So those with an eraser, we're just going to take the highlights off. Those without an eraser, you're not going to do this stage, and you're going to join in the shading bit afterwards. It's interesting still to watch this though, because this is a useful technique for drawing and shading anything in really. So make sure that's nice and smooth. I'm then going to get my eraser. I'm just going to clean it up a little bit. Okay. I'm going to draw in the main highlights, which are here, down here, a little bit here, definitely around this bit here. I'm going to draw those in using my eraser. So I'm just moving around the ear, picking out the lightest bits all over. Okay, we're going to move on to shading, and for that I'm going to keep my F. If you've got a HB pencil, then that's perfectly fine. All we're going to do is not really strong, but we're just going to pop in where the darkest parts are. So for me that's here, and then next sort of here. Also look at the fact that this bit is not a block of all solid shading. It is actually graduated from quite dark down here to a little bit lighter here, and it gets lighter as it heads this way. So don't just colour it in. If you're joining for the first time, you will note that I'm holding my pencil a bit different. So I'm holding it like this so that I don't apply too much pressure, because if I'm colouring like this, like I hold a pencil to write, it's going to leave some very defining lines, and I don't want that right now. Still smudging, so people without an eraser, join in this stage please. All you're going to be doing is leaving the lightest areas, so you may need to do a little bit more shading. but if you just for now pop in your darkest areas like we're doing so you can follow the video as normal. Make sure you don't lose your line. So as you can see, I'm putting in the dark areas, but I'm not shading them in as dark as they are right now, because there's no going back once you've whacked it in really dark. Again, just making sure I don't lose my line. I'm just looking really carefully at the shapes of my shading. Giving it a bit of a smudge, and then we'll make sure we're not losing our lines. There, here, this bit here. Just want to make sure I keep that shape. Definitely this bit here. I'm going to shade this bit here. Now, for now, I'm ignoring the earring because it's not that important. What I'm trying to focus on this lesson is actually drawing an ear. So I'm going to leave the earring alone. I can show you how to add it in at the end if you do wish to pop that in, if you are drawing the same picture that I am. I'm just going to pop in where the neck is, like we've done in previous lessons. I don't want it to just look like an ear floating on the page, so I am actually drawing in sort of where the edge of the face is, where the neck is. I'll also add in some of the hair. Coming up to the top of the ear now and adding some shading in there. And again, making sure I don't lose my line. I'm just moving around and looking where, going from darkest to lightest, where my shading needs to be. Keep it light, keep it quite delicate, keep smudging that a bit, keep re-putting your lines in, and always looking back and forth all the time. My eyes constantly flick from my drawing to the photograph. If you haven't joined in one of my lessons before, you won't have heard me say it. It's 90% looking, 10% drawing. That's actually what drawing is. It's all about observation and looking very carefully at what you're drawing. Okay, so from here I've still got my F, so if you've got a HB you can still continue using that. I'm just going to suggest where the hair is around the ear. I'm just drawing the lines coming away from the ear. I'm not interested in what's down here. I'm just interested in the immediate area around the ear. Where the hair sort of gathers together, I will cover this in another lesson. Where it gathers together, you'll have a lot more line, and where it starts to spread out, it's a lot less line. I'm not going to draw on every single individual hair because I'm not interested in doing something so hyper realistic right now, but also it draws attention away from the main subject, which in this case is the ear. And just looking carefully at the direction and the points where it's gathering together. Doesn't have to be perfect where every single hair is. When this drawing is not next to the photograph, nobody's going to be able to tell whether I exactly managed to copy it or not. And it doesn't matter. As long as this looks like an ear and that looks like hair, then that's good enough. Okay, just adjusting my line a little bit on that ear. So even when I'm drawing the hair, I've still got my eye on the ear, whether the ear's the right shape or not, looking all the time. And if I notice something, I go in and correct it. Just popping my line back in there because it's sort of got a bit lost. So now I'm going to select a darker pencil. If you do not have a darker pencil, that by darker I mean the in a set of sort of 4H to 6B, I'm going for the Bs because the B is a softer graphite pencil and you get a darker effect without having to apply pressure. If you have just got a HB pencil, then you just apply a little more pressure. So now what I'm doing is I'm going to add in the very darkest points over the entire drawing. I'm going to start with the ear and then I'll probably move on to the hair. So this is my darkest point here, so I'm going to pop that in. I always try and shade in the direction of the object that I'm drawing. Just adds a bit more definition, a bit more accuracy, a bit more life to it. So everybody should be doing the same now. There's no more bits that, you know, if you don't have an eraser, there isn't any more bits that you need to miss out on. You'll notice as we progress, I leave a lot more of the marks on and I smudge less. You can keep smudging it till it's really, really smooth, but I like to just add a bit of line and use the texture of the page just to add a bit more to it. I also change the way I hold my pencil for the shading where I do want to apply that more pressure. Obviously I hold it in a position where I can do that. I'm now going to add a bit more, I'll do a bit more here so that we're finishing the ear off a bit more and all the shading on the ear. And definitely this round here needs a bit more. And here. I'm just looking all the time at this is similar to this shade, which is similar to this shade. You know, this is the darkest, then this, so I'll do this. And I sort of work my way out of it like that from the darkest point. Okay, now I'm going to move on doing some darker parts of the hair. So again, holding my pencil like this, I'm going to be adding on the darkest bits, which is not individual hairs, it's just shading within the hair. So I'm going to add some of those on. The darkness around the ear of the hair is actually helping me also to define the ear. So I am adding on the hairs and the shaded parts, but I'm also making sure that I keep the outline of the ear. This dark bit here is quite defining, so that definitely needs to be on there. Shading where the hair is tucked behind the ear, and then drawing up and away to show the direction. Just suggesting those hairs, and we definitely need to get in this shading here because this is very dark where the side of the neck blends into the hair. I'm leaving some a little bit longer because then that really does show which way the hair is going in, but I do not, as I said, need to put in every single hair, just a few to show the general direction. fine, keeping that line on the ear. We do not want that to disappear. Right, coming back to the ear now, we are going to make sure that our darkest parts are dark. I'm holding my pencil a little bit more like a writing pencil now because I'm adding the line back in. I'm adding in line as shading as well. I'm not pressing on here, just really, really lightly. Changing this here because this definitely needs some shading, so make sure that shade around this part of the ear is right. Correcting the shape of my ear a little bit, looking back and forth all the time. I'm perfecting the shapes of the shading. So where I don't want any lines to show in the shading, obviously I swap the hold of my pencil back again. Here I am back to holding like a writing pencil as I outline this. I tried to keep the defining lines quite straight. For those of you that don't have an eraser, just make sure that you're avoiding the really light parts, a bit of shading up here on the ear. And I'm just going to add in that bit of hair actually here, just where there's a few looped round. So working over the entire piece, adding in all of the shading. I am mainly focusing, I'm happy enough with the hair around now, I'm mainly focusing on the main subject, the ear. I'm not liking this bit, so this bit is going to have to be rescued. You have to look really carefully at your ear because this ear is what we call a detached ear, so it doesn't go straight into the head. I see a lot of people draw ears from the head, like round and then straight in. And if you notice this one, the lobe is detached from the head. Some people's do go straight into their head, but it's just all the time, I cannot emphasize enough, looking really carefully at exactly what you're drawing. So if you have got a different drawing to me, really looking at what your photograph, what your ear looks like. Just getting this shading as close as I can to the real thing, and then I will pop my highlights back in with the rubber. Obviously if you don't have an eraser, you're going to be just avoiding the whitest areas as much as you can. You just have to be really careful with your smudging and with your shading. I'm just keeping shading until I'm really happy with the shapes and the level of tone that I have. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to add in, just making sure my rubber's really clean, add in the highlights. Just re-add them in a little bit. My very, very lightest bits just want to come back in. I'm just swapping back to my F here just to put a bit of shading in here. Either side of the highlight, emphasise my line a little bit. I've just gone a little bit wild with the rubber. It's hard to get that. I've got these quite good rubbers, Derwent rubbers they are. If you're looking for an eraser, I cannot recommend these enough. These are good. I think they're called ergonomic rubbers. They're really nice to hold, and you've got some sort of not points, some edges on, so that you can get those more detailed line and thin highlights. So I'm now just going round and I'm neatening up the direction, the lines of everything, as well as adding in my highlights. I really want those to pop out because that's what's going to make it look a lot more realistic. Making sure I remove that rubber dust from my drawing, because if you shade over it, it leaves some really awful marks on your work. I'm just adding in a few more medium tones around my highlights, so that's something that you can do even if you haven't got an eraser. Trying to get that smooth look on the ear. Just smudging it a bit more, putting my highlight back in. It's this giving and taking sort of back and forth game. It is for me anyway, until I'm happy with exactly what I'm looking at. Obviously this will not be here when somebody's viewing this, so therefore it doesn't have to be exact. Just as long as, you know, this looks like hair, this looks like an ear, then it's good enough. Just going to smudge a bit there so I can put some lights on the face, because I want my ear to look like it is actually on somebody's head and not just floating about on the page. It will help you later on as well if you learn to sort of place it on a human being. It will help you with the lessons that are coming up. Just smudging my hair a little bit. This is us just finishing up really now, and then I will show you how to add on the earring if you do have, you know, pierced ears on your photograph and you want to know how to add it in, because you can add it in. Keep those lines quite straight, quite direct. As I said at the beginning, line is important in drawing, but particularly with features like ears, because they are, you know, they've got defining lines. Just trying to get that highlight in the right place. How are we all doing? I hope we're doing well. I can't turn and look at you all right now because I'm focused. It's really important to focus on what you're doing because you sort of get lost in it, and that makes it a better drawing. So I'm using a bit of line now just to give some direction to my shaded areas, a bit more definition. I could keep messing about with it all day, you generally could, but it's best if you're getting to a point where you think, do you know what, this is looking, I'm happy with this, you're best to walk away. I think I said it in my previous lesson. It's a difficult thing to learn, to stop and to walk away, because you can always come and add to it, but often if you go too far, it's not ruined, but it's not, maybe you're not happy with it, or maybe it's not quite what you wanted, but there's not really much you can do to rescue it once you have gone too far. Adding in those final highlights. I am going to leave this alone in a minute. Okay, I'm going to leave this as it is, and I'm going to show you how to, you could leave it like this, so you don't have to draw the earring in. If you have got the same photograph as me, or you have got a picture of an ear with an earring in, then this is how I would go about this particular earring and how I would add it in after. I've got grey hands now and I'm putting marks on my drawing. Right, I bet you've all got them, haven't you? Has everyone got nice silver fingers? So I would draw where the earring, I have F here so you can still use your HB, I would draw where the earring enters the ear. We've got like a defining circle, I would put that in, and then I would outline it. Look really careful at the direction, it's not going to be a circle because we're looking at it from an angle. I would get this dark bit in behind, outline it a little bit. I'd use my rubber. If you have got an eraser, I would use that to draw the earring in. We're only after a suggestion, we're not after this to become the feature of our drawing. We want it just to be a part of the drawing, so I'm not going to go at it. Let's just put that in there. Just a few simple lines, a little bit of shading. I'm putting in both sides of where it's coming out of the ear. A little bit of line of this side. So I'm just using my eraser to take off the shading that I had under there. Yeah, something like that. I'm just going to add in a touch of shading here because you now want my light's mainly coming from this direction, so this ring earring will cast a slight shadow. I want to make sure it looks like it is actually in the ear, so I'm just going to pop on that shadow underneath. Still got my F here, so I'm just if you have got your HB, just press on a little bit more, or go over and over it. There we go. Hope you all enjoyed that. I'm going to leave this alone. Leave it alone. Everybody walk away. Super. Well done. Fantastic. Okay. Hold your drawings up. Let's have a look. That one's mine. Brilliant. Hold them up high so I can see them all. Fantastic. Super. Well done, everyone. That was a long one. That was a long lesson. It was me not leaving it alone. Okay, so thank you so much for joining in. I'm really, really pleased that so many of you actually found it here on my website. These lessons are completely free. If you would like to donate a little something to the classes, there is a donate link in the text above this video. The other classes, if this is the first one you've taken part in, the other classes are in a tabbed section below this video. Yeah, just thanks so much for joining in. I am this week going to do a Fun Wednesday, which is co-presented with a special guest. That will be live on Facebook, so not here, it will be live on my Facebook page. There should be a link to that somewhere in the very top of this website. I think it's over there. Yeah, super. Thanks so much for joining in. I will hopefully see you for Fun Wednesday live on Facebook and back here next week for another drawing lesson. Fantastic. See you later.